Good morning.
Good morning. Welcome. Nice to have you here.
So today is June 13th, 2021, and our conversation this morning is entitled Making Room for Your Good. And I'm going to read a writing by our founder, Ernest Holmes, called Spiritual Substance is My Supply. And in it, he has some interesting questions to ask ourselves that we'll explore further in the talk. But let me now start this reading. I know that spirit fills all space and animates every form. Therefore, spirit is the true actor in everything. But I also know that spirit can only act for me by acting through me. This means simply that God can only give me what I can take. I am conscious that as I daily enter into my divine inheritance in my thought and in the spirit, I am entering into the realm of the absolute causation. And I completely believe that from this secret place of the Most High within me, there shall be projected an objective manifestation of my every legitimate desire. Am I really accepting abundance? Is my thought really animating my experience with the idea of plenty? Am I affirming that divine substance is forever flowing to me as supply? Today, and this is the affirmative prayer that you may repeat to yourself as I read it. Today, I praise the abundance in all things. I animate everything with the idea of abundance. I am remembering only the good. I am expecting more good. I am experiencing good. I acknowledge the good working everywhere. I give thanks for this good, that this good is flowing into my experience in ever increasing volume. There is that within me that sees, knows, and understands this truth, that completely accepts it. There is good enough to go around. Therefore, I do not withhold that good from myself or others, but constantly proclaim spiritual substance is forever flowing to each and all as supply. And so it is.
That's a powerful reading.
It really is, I thought. And so we're going to explore some of those questions. And as you do those questions, be careful not to make yourself wrong. I thought, oh, I'm not doing that enough, or oh, I don't do that. I mean, it's good to understand that and say, no, I could be doing more of this. But if you notice in the prayer, he starts by praising the abundance in all things. So we want to consider and think about giving thanks for the abundance we do have instead of saying, oh, well, I don't have enough of this, or I don't have enough of that, or I'm not doing this enough. We can change our habits. And by habits, I mean our thinking patterns, our affirmations, our prayers, our meditations, to be more receptive to more good. But we want to start with giving thanks with what we have. So Bob actually came up with this title of Making Room for Your Good. And the first question is, am I really accepting abundance?
And when we say, am I really accepting abundance? I mean by that, am I anticipating or hoping for good while we're really highlighting what's not so good? Am I really giving my attention to the things in my life that don't work or that aren't working the way I'd like them to? Without, excuse me, I don't get congested until I get on the microphone. I don't know why. I do know why we do this. We pick at whatever isn't normal or isn't right. We pick at it and hope that somehow by, I guess, picking at it, we'll get rid of it. But what we do is we give our attention to it instead of our attention to abundance. And this is really my intention here today, is to help us shift from worrying about the things that we worry about instead of giving attention to how could this be the best possible moment? How could I move into this moment with more of me available for my good? I think we know a number of people in our congregation right now that are struggling with some pretty big issues, some actually even life-threatening issues. And when you're struggling with those life-threatening issues, the tendency is to have all of your focus all of the time on those issues. And it feels and seems like a good idea because what if I turn away from it? And the truth is, whatever you're worried about, you can worry about later as well. And if you don't allow any breaks from your worry, then you won't have anything other than worry. And this is an important piece. I know sometime back when we were struggling with some issues, uh, Judith said, let's watch a movie. And I thought, well, I don't know, can we take a break from what we're worried about? And the answer is not only can you, I can think of nothing better than to do just that. We found a movie. About halfway through the movie, there was a couple of lines in it that suddenly jumped out and said, it's time to laugh. It's time for you to smile. And if you can't smile and you can't laugh, how can you have in your life what you'd like to have? You're not making room for it. And what I realize is that we make a lot of room for what's wrong. We even make room for what might happen later that's more wrong. And we don't make enough room for what's good. And when we're focused on what's good, we often focus on it with an expectation that maybe it won't last. You know, let's hope this good hour lasts longer. And so really it's important to slow down, look at the moment and ask yourself, how can I move into this moment with more of me? How can I have a more celebratory attitude toward it? How can I actually experience more of my good in the middle of what feels to be things that I don't want to have or wish weren't going on around me?
Right. All the while being grateful for what's right in your
Yeah.
life. It's so important to do that. And, I think in this country more than others that I've been in, although certainly in South America, this is true too. There is such we have our have people have so much, especially when we live down here and we see the boats and the yachts and the mansions, and our have-nots have so little comparatively. And it's so easy to compare yourself to that and say, well, compared to them, I'm not having abundance. But we need to not compare at all. There are so many countries where everybody lives in the lowest level, and you know what? They're all happy. I've been to some of the poorest villages in Central and South America, and everybody's happy because I mean, they have dirt floors, and the kids run around with no clothes on their bottoms, and that's normal, and everybody's doing it. And so they're just happy to be alive, and they're not comparing themselves to somebody else and saying, well, compared to them, we don't have enough, so that's very important to avoid. And you start by being grateful for what you have, but then ask yourself, am I really open to the abundance of the universe? Because the universe is an abundant universe.
You know, in many ways, your good is I hate this when this happens. Your good is like the air in your tire. You know, you can't see it, and without it, you can't go anywhere. And we need to make more room for the air in the tire of our experience. We spend a lot more time looking at the tread and asking ourselves, do I have enough traction on this tire? Is it going to, will it sustain the bumps? And the truth is, the reason the tire works as well as it does is because of the one thing that you can't see, and that's air. We need to inflate our consciousness. We need to inflate it with the possibility of good. We need to say yes to, and all of that is invisible. You know, so when I just think it's amazing when I think about the thousands and thousands of miles that I've driven on tires that without air go nowhere, and the thousands and thousands of thoughts that you've had that without consciousness mean nothing.
Right,
I was
right.
talking to a man recently who had a beautiful $1 million yacht, and he was unhappy. And I said, I don't understand your unhappiness. And of course, I was automatically looking at his $1 million yacht and thinking, how could you be unhappy? Your yacht is actually larger than our condo, and you don't live on your yacht. You simply use it from time to time. And he said, do you see the name on the yacht? I said, yes, it's Mary Jo. And I said, that's what is that? He said, that was my wife who died about 4 months ago.
Mm,
And he said, now I don't have any reason to be on my yacht. You see, the yacht really isn't about the boat. It's really about her.
mm.
And I thought, wow, yeah, you see who's in our life and how they are in our life and how we celebrate them when they are in our life is important. one of the comments he made to me later in the conversation, he said, there were so many times that we were together that I didn't really connect with her because we had later to do that in. I could connect
Mm.
later. We would enjoy each other's good, down the road, after the next thing, when the kids graduate from school, when this, when that. He said, and I look back and now and I see a lot of uncherished moments.
Oof. Wow, that's powerful. So that's so important because when we talk about making room for your good, we're not just talking about financial good. We're also talking about relationship and love abundance. We're talking about abundance in all areas.
Yes.
So we are addressing finances here, but it's just one part. And it's certain we know lots of people with lots of money who are miserable. So we know that's not the total answer for happiness. Good point, Bob. So the next question I have to ask is my thought really animating my experience with the idea of plenty? Now, again, we're talking plenty financially, but plenty in all areas, relationships, personal self-expression, um, happiness, all of that just is my thought animating my experience with the idea of plenty. Because, again, just like with finances, when you praise what you already have, it creates the consciousness, the brain, the consciousness, which is the whole energy of vibration around you that attracts like to you. So it starts with
Ernest Holmes said it another way too. He said, we as a philosophy are open at the top. And he didn't say anything about us being empty below that. He said, we're full. We're full in the context of having a philosophy that addresses so much of life and maybe even all of life, but we're open for more. We're open at the top for the possibility of more. So being animated, in my understanding of it, is that you have at the tip of your tongue, at the tip of your consciousness, the possibility of even more than you've ever had before in whatever realm or whatever area you're exploring. And that can be relationship, it can be love, it can be how could I be available for the more that is there that I cannot see?
and the one thing that I haven't mentioned, it's been foremost in my mind for a couple of months here, is health, the abundance and of health, and that's clearly important. And even with what I was facing with going through this surgery and treatment for, if, if left alone, could be a life-threatening situation. I've focused on my health and how grateful I am of what there is to be grateful for, which is that I am healthy and I
Mhm.
did get intervention and I plan to live much longer and very happily. As a matter of fact, I'm improving my health now with some of my health habits. But I'm grateful for the health I have. But I want to address something that's even tougher um, with animating the idea of plenty when we might be facing the transition or death of a loved one or even ourselves, because we all get to that place eventually. And how can we think of abundance when we're facing a transition for someone? And I thank Bob every day for bringing us the Seth material. I mean, it was written in the 70s, but we've been offering classes since last summer on Seth and several of his books, and we're going to be starting one again in July. But Seth's focuses so much on the idea that if I get anything across to you, I want you to get the eternality of your soul. The eternality of your soul, that you are a never ending eternal entity. And this is a brief, tiny fingernail of an experience of who you are. And when you make your transition, you, as your soul, blah, blah, blah. This experience actually, he says, goes on and continues
Yeah.
to evolve, but you get who you truly are, which is that soul part of yourself that has eternal experiences. So even death can be an experience of entering this consciousness of plenty, and you can feel that for a loved one.
Right.
That you can feel excitement for their reuniting with their soul and knowing that greater part of themselves that continues and expands and is an eternal part of God. That's exciting.
In some ways, he's saying that your life, this is your life. Some of you aren't a thumb, some of you are a first finger. This is your life. And when you transition, you connect to all of the other lives that you also are, and you discover the hand that feeds the fingers that are the lives that you're living.
Right, right.
A hard concept to grasp, but he's saying you cannot lose a digit and lose your life. This simply disappears so that this can become, and this
It
can
doesn't
become,
disappear. He says it keeps evolving.
actually, yeah, it keeps evolving. So it becomes the one. So you're probably more like that Indian goddess who has multiple hands,
Kali.
Kali. We have our hand in everything. We have hands in everything. We are so much more than we suspected, and so it's really really critical on your in your worst moments to know that this is just a moment of pain and struggle rather than that this is now the way it's going to be, or this is what you're going to be left with. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt or you don't
Just
feel,
feel a sense of loss
yeah, and all of
and
that.
fear.
But I think it reminds me very much of watching our kids go off to college, and we we say to them, oh my, you're going to be gone, or thank God you're going at last. No, I mean, we say, you're going, and but what are they going to? They're going to a place where they can discover more than they've ever known. They're going to a place where they can discover things you can't teach them. They're going to a place where they're going to
Yeah.
explore a universe and a world, and they're going to study it in a way that's going to make them richer and more full. And what helps us is to say, we've done a lot to help you get to the place where you can have that experience. If you love someone, including yourself, you've done a lot to get to the point where you can be richer now and more full. You have gotten to a point now in your life where you're available for more, even if you don't know that that's true. And when you do know that's true, when you go to college, you sign up for more.
Indeed. So the third question that Ernest asks in that reading that I did is, am I affirming that divine substance is forever flowing to me as supply? It's always flowing to me as supply. So it's a matter of, do I know that? Or if I think that life is hard and there's not enough and I don't have enough, I'm actually blocking that. Do you
Mhm.
see what I mean? I'm blocking it. So supply, divine substance, that's what Ernest calls the energy before it manifests as form. But that we're always supplied divine substance. It's everywhere. And as I accept it, it flows to me as supply of everything that I need. And so we were looking at some of the ways that you can do, and the ways we looked at were supply of material things, first of all. So one of the things that we teach people, excuse me, we're both coughing this morning,
I know.
in our teaching is to expect unexpected good. Well, how do you do that? Well, you just know that the source of your good doesn't come from one source. It comes from God. So we sometimes think that our money comes um, our income, from our job, um, from our social security, from our pension. That's the source of my
Pension.
supply.
Oh, sorry.
Portfolio.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
but
That I know. Sure, I relate to that.
but it doesn't. It comes from God. And so we need to not limit ourselves when you know that you could have any unexpected good from all kinds of places. It's more inviting for it to come in,
Mhm.
including unexpected good and gifts from others. When we teach prosperity classes, we often have people keep track of their income and their outgo, but their income particularly, to keep track of that, the unexpected good. And that can be when a friend treats you to lunch, or when somebody gives you something that they no longer have use for. Just this unexpected things. That's all supply. And when you can accept it and give thanks for it, you just know that your good comes from so many sources. Doesn't have to come from what you expect it to come from. Um, One of our people has a phrase that I love, and I'm sure it's not original, but and that is income streams. You can expect and treat for new income streams.
And income can be income, love, income, health, income, whatever it is. And for every person that's ever been sick with an illness that is fatal, someone has had that same illness and not died. And so that income can be the incoming healing, the incoming well-being, the incoming
Mhm.
understanding and compassion that's required for you to have the complete and total life that you want to embrace.
Exactly. Exactly. But, again, we so often limit where our good can come from. And if we realize it's really coming from the divine, it's coming from God, it's coming from the universe, whatever word you like to use, but just know that the energy is all around you and can come to you from unexpected ways, an infinite number of ways.
Well, so I don't know why, but I get an idea and then I can't seem to get rid of it. The tire metaphor to me comes back to me is if you have a tire that has a hole in it, then you don't spend a lot of time trying to figure out the meaning of the hole, where you got it. You take it to a repair shop and you say, "Would you please plug the hole?"
Mm.
And once the hole is plugged in, what do? You reinflate it. You don't say, "Well, I think I used up all the air earlier, or there shouldn't be. This never should have happened to me." No, what you do is you reinflate the tire and say onward and upward.
And so one of the ideas, excuse me, I'm looking at my notes, but we talked about circulating your stuff because that is just
Mm.
of prime importance. One of the things you want to do to make sure you have room for your good is to also look around where you live and assess, am I making room for the good I want, or am I just tolerating what I have accumulated and gotten by default perhaps? And so what you want to do is see if you can circulate some of that. You have to make room for your good. What are you not using that you could give away? Somebody else could really, really appreciate and enjoy it.
Yeah, and what is the true value of it? Interestingly enough, one of a close personal friend of mine just gave us uh, a pair of loudspeakers to distribute or find a place for or whatever. Now, these loudspeakers originally cost around $600 a pair. I went on eBay and I went on Craigslist and I went every place else to see if I could find them what they're worth now. Well, depending on where you go, they're worth $75 a pair. So they're worth between $75 and $600. So what's the real value of them? Well, I hooked them up and I listened to them. They're wonderful. They're beautiful.
He hooked them up with some very nice components, by the
Yeah. So, well, I had all of the pieces that were required to give them a chance to do what they're good at doing, which is reproducing the best possible sound. But what I was impressed with was the engineering that went into them, the quality of workmanship, the intentionality that the company that manufactured them had for them to sound as wonderful as they sounded. So for some people, they're worth $75 and they've been on the market for 741 days and haven't sold. And for other people, they're worth $1 million. What is the true value? Well, then I guess the question would be, what is the listening? What is the awareness? What is the willingness to engage and involve yourself in whatever it is you have and see and value and find its value? So we've been walking around the last 2 days thinking it's Christmas because they sound so good and forgotten how nice it is to have something that sounds that nice in our home or in our enormous condo. And and I'm thinking this is just interesting because you can't attach a dollar value. You attach personal experience. So Judith then told me what she thought of them after she listened to them. Judith has no background at all in sound engineering. She knows nothing about any of that. And her description of what she heard matched a reviewer with 50 years of experience reviewing loudspeakers. She even had the right vocabulary. So listening into your experience, listening for the value doesn't require a special education. it requires a willingness to get involved and to engage and say yes and to find the value.
Well, and I'm talking about circulating too, because we have to give to receive.
Yes.
It's part of having a consciousness of acceptance, but you have to give to receive, and the Bible tells us that. You know, you must give to receive, and it. So when you know that every time you give, even if it's recirculating something you already have, you know you're opening that circle of flow. And when you're generous and you give a bigger tip than you have to, or any of that, you're giving to the universe. When you support where you get your spiritual inspiration, you are doing that. You are invoking that law of circulation to return to you, pressed down, flowing over, and multiply. And so that's important to know that and get that. And what I thought of when I was writing this is an old movie. It was a 1974 movie. I didn't see it in 74, but it won Art Carney an Academy Award.
Oh, yeah.
And the movie was called Harry and Tonto. Now, Art Carney was Harry, and Tonto was his cat. And he was an old man, and he decided to pick up from New York City and travel across the country to California. And, I don't think he had much family or anything, so he's just on his own. And on the way, he, had all kinds of adventures, but he ended up being thrown into jail. And there was a Native American in the jail. It was played by Chief Dan George. And he had a hurt elbow or knee or something
Art
like
Carney
that.
did.
Art Carney did. And so the Native American said, "Well, you want me? I could heal that. You want me to heal it?" He said, "You could heal this?" And he said, "Sure." And he said, "Okay." And he said, "Well, what do you have to give me in exchange?" And Art Carney said, "Well, I don't have anything but this suitcase that they threw me in here with." He said, "Well, open up the suitcase. Let's see what's in it." So I opened up his suitcase, and he had a new pair of underwear, and the chief picked that up and he said, "This'll do." And so that was his payment for the healing. And he did a healing, and it worked. It healed Art Carney. But I thought that is such a perfect example of this law of circulation.
It's so
You
exciting.
have to pay something
Yeah.
for what you're getting.
That is so exciting. I gathered up all my underwear and I'm taking it to my doctor's office. And there's no more copay. There's like some of the underwear hasn't even been opened yet. So
Oh, that's the one you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
take.
Well, I don't know.
So, our time has come to an end.
Pretty
So
close to.
I hope some of these questions have been helpful for you. We can all open up our receptivity to the supply of God in a greater way. And so let's end with a prayer.
And yes. And
So let's come together and know that we are part of this infinite energy that we call life. We sum it all up by calling it the universe, and we know that universe is empowered by, animated by, and is expressed by what we call God. And we give thanks to know that we are an infinitesimal small part of it, and yet all of its power lives within us as we create our own experience. We know that we are constantly examining our thinking, our receptivity, giving praise and thanksgiving for all the good that we have. And as we do so and circulate our good, we know more returns to us. And we give thanks for that infinite, infinite supply.
we are not the conditions that surround us. We are not the conditions that we have been conditioned to believe animate us. We are pure love, light, joy, and possibility in action. And we today decide that we will open all of the doors to those things in all of the ways that they can be opened. We say yes right now to all of that and all that is good. And knowing this to be so, together we say,
And
and so
so
it
it
is.
is.